Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Subcontinent Partition and I'm here with Srimati Aroma Dutta, who's a well-known development worker in Dhaka. It's June 3rd, 2011, and okay, well, let's get started. We're conducting this interview for research and documentation and historical archiving purposes for the ISPaD project. So thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed today. Okay. The first question we ask everyone is short, but it's a complicated one. Can you tell me what or where is your dish or homeland?
Very much Bangladesh.
Okay.
This
Now,
is where my ancestors' home, and their ancestors' home, and their ancestors' home.
okay. So,
And that's very much in Brahmanbaria, which is here. Yeah.
okay.
That's,
How far is that from a big city? Major
from
city?
Dhaka it's almost about 100 kilometers or
100
70
kilometers.
miles
Oh,
around there.
Okay. And how big is the village or that you grew up in, or?
I did not grow up in a village, but I come from that particular ancestral village which is called Ramrai.
Okay. So.
Okay, so I don't come, I have not lived in that village.
Okay.
So I have not lived in the village, but my ancestral home is in that village called Ramrai in Brahmanbaria district, originally known as Tripura.
So
So it was part of Tripura.
You're very familiar with your homeland
Yes.
and ancestral
Ancestral,
tree.
very
It
much.
seems like. So, how long have you lived in? Well, not this current home, but how long has your family's home been where it is, or is it just for generations back?
About 400 years.
400 years. Wow. Could you, since you know it, it seems as though, could you just please describe your dish and home?
That's what I say. Desh is very much Bangladesh, where we originally came from a village called Ramrai.
Are you? Well,
in
no.
the-
I'm just asking about the village itself.
The village itself. The village sits in the place called Ramrai. It's about 3 miles away from Brahmanbaria district.
Okay.
So
Now, okay. So it seems like I'm asking the same question over and over. But did any of your relations or neighbors leave during the partition times or at any time? Or did they leave?
yes, many of them have left.
Why or why not? Did
Why they have left?
Yes.
In 47, because they felt there might be more problems, racial problems, communal problems, and for protection of their children and to have a safe home. Many of them have migrated to West Bengal, India.
Okay, so you and your family are Hindu then?
Right.
Okay. Do you know how they left in the times that they've left from there?
My mother's family left also. They were from Rajshahi. My grandparents, my mother's direct parents, they left in 1948, early 48, from Rajshahi to West Bengal, Kolkata. And my father's family, actually my grandfather did not opt for India, but his cousins left for India during migration.
So were they leaving in spite of no rioting or because of rioting immediately there?
Actually, in Brahmanbaria and Rajshahi, there weren't any riots, but there was a fear. There was no direct riot. The riot particularly took place in Noakhali, some part of Dhaka.
Now this is a pretty difficult question to when you're thinking about back then, but do you know how your family survived economically, socially, you know, as if they were refugees back then?
They had very difficult times, very, very difficult times. Both with my mother's parents, they had to face severe poverty because they did not build any houses in Kolkata or in the neighborhood, and they left their huge two buildings in Rajshahi, and they had severe problem. They really had severe problems. Same with my aunts. They also left, and they had to be in the refugee camp for a while, and then they actually managed to get some sort of support from other relatives, and they had really difficult time economically.
Well, you actually partially answered what my next question was going to be, is did your family and or neighbors, did they sell their home or was it confiscated upon their departure?
With my mother's family, I mean, they left, they couldn't sell the house. They couldn't sell the house, it was taken away by the government. And same with my aunt's family and they left.
Okay, so
they couldn't sell anything.
Are you familiar with whether any compensation from the government was given, or?
There was, with my family, with my parents, my father's family, there was no compensation. But with my mother's family in Rajshahi, sometimes, and I think that was, yes, some compensation was given, but that was a token compensation.
So, wow, you did actually, I understand that it wasn't the market value, as it were.
No.
But what about others who left? The reason why I'm so surprised is I actually haven't heard very many people saying that they were compensated. So
most of them did not.
Okay.
Most of them they did not. But because my mother's family, my uncle, my mother's elder brother was a very renowned lawyer in Baharampur, and then he had some connections with Rajshahi, because Baharampur and Rajshahi were very close. He had some clients in Rajshahi, and they were the one who actually helped him. They were his, like Muhammad Ali of Bobra. Muhammad Ali of Bobra was one of his clients. So he actually helped my uncle Munish Bhattak to get the compensation.
Now, did your family face any rioting? Your family face any rioting or violence, or?
Yes, in 71. Yes.
71.
When the Liberation War took place, my grandfather and my uncle was picked up by the Pakistani armies, brutally tortured and murdered. We never got their dead bodies. Yes.
Sorry to hear that, but now, you mentioned that a lot of your relatives went on to West Bengal, but you're here in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Well, you said it. That,
Why? For a very particular reason.
I'm happy that you are here. But
yeah, my grandfather, my father's father, my grandfather, whose name is Aroma Dutta, who was the first man to demand Bangla as the state language in 1948 in the first Constituent Assembly in Karachi on 24th of February. He actually was the deputy leader of the House of United India, but he was chosen as the first Chief Minister of West Bengal in 47, but he decided to opt for Pakistan to protect the minorities. So he actually opted for Pakistan, and he was the Constituent Assembly member, and he also was the first person to demand Bangla as the state language. And for this particular reason, he stayed back to provide support, emotional support, and particularly for the minorities, that they should not leave their homeland, because it is their homeland. They should fight it back and stay here and not turn into refugees, and also not drain out particularly the intelligentsia group, because the middle class intelligentsia was particularly from this particular group, and he actually was very keen that we do not have drainage of intelligence, and that was one of the reasons he stayed back, and he wanted that your homeland is homeland. You should fight it back and stay in your homeland. And because of him, I stayed back, because he was murdered. We never got their dead bodies. And this land, which was liberated in 71 on the 16th of December, and this land is soaked with their blood, so I have a very strong emotional attachment to stay back, to hold on to their blood. That's the reason I stay back.
I didn't realize actually that I was speaking to such a, I'll say, important figure. You certainly don't come across as arrogant, and you have all the right to be. That's, wow. I'm going to keep asking questions. Now, when you were here, I know that you're a development worker, but was there any obstacles to your schooling and working, or
Not in schooling.
to other?
Not in schooling, but in working, yes. Schooling, because I studied in a convent, an American convent.
Okay.
Missionary
Yeah.
managed, American missionary managed convent, and I didn't face that at all. But when I came to the university, at that time also we didn't feel, because we were deeply involved with what you call, that was the time when we were fighting for the liberation, because we are the product of the 60s, 69, 70, we were actually chanting against the military junta, Khan at that time, very much deeply involved with the student movement. We didn't face that, but then all of a sudden, the crackdown came, and this genocide started, and with this genocide, you know that 30 million people were killed, and my grandfather and I lost my grandfather and uncle. But when I finished my university, I actually joined the faculty, Dhaka University, as a lecturer in the sociology department. There I faced some problems, I did, but I was the one, institutional discrimination, but very subtle discrimination, which we mined as very subtle.
Subtle, now, discrimination isn't against you because of your religion,
Grandfather and me, yeah.
Or you're one of the people that not just I would ask if you were male, female, or your religion, but also because of just who your family is, I guess. So.
And because of me being very outspoken, and I always throw challenges back. I don't take it, I don't swallow.
Thank you. I could be more like you, but I guess my next question is why others couldn't stay like you did.
depends. It is why others. My case is very different because I chose not to leave even after all the persecution I had to go through, because I am indebted to my grandfather and to my uncle, and that is the only reason. And the other people, many of them did not have the options, and I had the option because I am highly qualified in the context of Bangladesh. I was in a very high professional group starting from Dhaka University, and then I was working in the development sector, and I chose whatever it is that I can take it up nationally and internationally, the problems. I had the channels. I knew Dr. Dorsidar, who is a human rights activist. When I was in deep trouble, I did contact him, and they had been going around with the senators and also with the State Department and had taken up my issue. So I had friends outside the country and within the country also.
But a lot of people do have friends, but not everybody acts upon it, so I congratulate you in that sense. When, in the time of partition, why do you think there was so many Hindus, Buddhists, and Christians fleeing over to West Bengal, but why do you think Muslims stayed back in West Bengal?
It's a very interesting question in the sense that India is a nation state, and they have established the democracy in India. First of all, they were all Indians first, then they are Hindus or Christians or Muslims second, and that the state has institutionalized, and they also had made laws to protect the minorities, which did not happen in this part, and India was extra sensitive to protect the minorities first, to see that democracy works, and democracy to be institutionalized. That's the difference, where we had different military rulers from time to time, changes of government, changes of regime, and where all these major issues, the whole issue of nationalism always had been on, how would I say, like low tide and high tide, and sometimes it eroded. So the mercury was always falling, rising. So it was not a steady situation where the democratic norms could establish or institutionalize or to be practiced.
I have my list of questions here, and then when I ask you a question, I look at what the next question is, and you already answered it. No, which is fantastic, because you're giving. Well, I thought I knew a lot, but I'm certainly learning a lot just speaking from you, as I do with every interview. But I guess the next one, you could tell me more about it, but you've answered in part already. But have you heard of riots and serious discrimination against yourself and other minorities, not just back then or even now today, or whatever, however you choose to answer it?
Riots I have heard when I was young, but when I grew up during Bangladesh period, I have not heard any riots. But I have heard, but riot means like, it's a different, how would I say, connotation, because riots are two-sided things.
Please.
Yes, two-sided. And here it's different because the Hindus are very weak and they are not united either. Okay. And the Hindus who are coming from the very, marginalized and vulnerable group, both economic and politically and socially, they are like the target group for discrimination. And that is one of the reasons, they were pretty voiceless. So there was like one-sided sort of a situation where because of the land is a big problem. So for grabbing land, there had been many kind of, how would I say, many kind of several processes were, adopted to chase the minorities out of this country to
No.
grab their land. So that kind of right, you cannot say exactly the right. It's more of a like to have the land, and we had this very black law which was called the Vested Property Act, which I just gave you. So through that, the poorest of the poorest, even the how would I say, the rich and educated people also lost their land because they could not fight it out.
But do you have anybody who's close to you, any personal family, friends that were victimized because of this?
Riot?
No, riots or the Enemy Vested Property Act?
Yes, it's me directly. My grandfather's property had been
Okay.
confiscated, and it has been taken away, and that is the reason how I started this work, and I'm the initiator of this work, of this Vested Property Act.
So, I guess, again, you've answered my next question. I was going to say, do you know anybody who's benefited, either personally or as a group, from before and after partition?
Benefited from which community?
You tell me, please. What?
Depends. It depends. Is it the minorities?
It's an open-ended question. Do you think anybody has benefited
From the
from
partition?
Yes.
There has been a benefit, of course. People who did not have the land at that time, they became the landowner. So it's very
Okay.
clear.
So, have you ever visited the other Bengal?
Always.
Always?
Of course. All my relatives are there.
Okay. So, could you describe the differences you feel, and since you did say all your relatives are there,
All my relatives are in
but
India.
okay, and you chose to stay,
Yes, I chose to stay.
but do you feel different when you go over there and when you come back?
I do feel the difference. I do.
I guess
Because I feel more free there, and I feel that there is a practice of democracy. People have voice, and we have less of a voice.
So I guess this is a bigger, very patent question. Can Hindus and Muslims live together?
Hindus and Muslims can live together. In India, they are living. If they can live in India, why cannot they live in Bangladesh? They can, provided there is a political will, provided there is such leadership, provided that they have these democratic norms which should be practiced the way it should be to protect the minorities. Of course they can, but it has to be protected by the state. The state has to take the responsibility and has to make rules, just not rules, to even apply the rules and to ensure and protect the minorities. So the Hindus and the Muslims can always stay together, like they're living in West Bengal and other parts of India. They're not running away from their country.
Well, I mean, I guess the next question would be, do terms of personally, do you socialize with Muslims,
Yes.
Hindus,
Yes,
everybody?
because I have lived with them. I was born with them. So it is always because I live in a country where Muslims is majority, and my friends are Muslims. I
Okay,
I've
but
grown
you
up
don't
with
have
them.
any problems.
Not with my with my friends and others. I never had problem. My associates, no problem. But in relation to state, there is a problem.
Um, I was going to actually go back to what you were saying earlier. You again just said what I was going to say. You talked about um, if the state has it set that and then Hindus and Muslims cannot live together. Do you see Bangladesh?
Hindus and Muslims can live together. That's what I said.
Mm-hmm.
If the state have a special role and has an agenda and political will, definitely they can.
Well, do you see that in Bangladesh? Do you see that happening? Do you see it? Is it currently happening? Do you see it happening along in the future?
With the civil society, it can. Within the civil society, we have very strong relationship with the Hindus and Muslims so far. But with the state mechanism, still there is a problem.
The problem I have with your answer, though, is you said it can, but do you believe it will?
That's very difficult to say. Very difficult to say. It will, I cannot say at this moment. As I said, depends. I said it is very much depending on the political will and the agenda of the state and the political parties.
Yeah, I guess I'm asking you to give me the results of the next election, essentially. So I guess I'll just ask you: is there anything else you'd like to say? I mean, I know there must be a million things you can tell me, but is there anything else you would like to say for this interview?
Yes, I think it's a good initiative, I would say, as a part of the research. And definitely people should not forget the saga of partition, why there was a partition in the first place, why we all have to suffer. Maybe all of these issues could come because it's a new generation coming, and for the new generation and for the new leadership, we would like to see that there is more process of harmonization, and maybe this could help, this study could come out with strategies for process of harmonization and to develop some policies and particular policies to harness with special focus on the process of nationalism to grow further, because first of all everybody should have the state protection, state support, state privileges, state services, so that you are a nationalist or a member of that nation, a citizen, which covers your, identity through the constitution, because the constitution is violated. So this is what I think could help, that the political parties, the political leaders could learn from, that the people have to come out with some clear, strategies for a future where they can, both Muslims and Hindus in our part, can live in a much better, way, and they're protected, and they're at all strata, they're in the all sector, like in India they have resident from other communities accept them in the communities. So we would like to see that this also happens. And if it is happening in this part, and it's a good lessons from other part of the world, particularly from our neighbor country, India, I think there is a kind of a prospect which this study can lead to. And this is how I think is very important, in the sense that the initiative taken by the Institute and bring more agendas, positive and concrete agendas to influence the people who are at the policy making levels. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your time. It was very educational for myself here, especially since it's getting pretty late. I know, and it's a difficult topic to talk about. But thank you
It's
again
very
for your time.
Thank you, Shubha.
Thank you.